You just paid off a credit card. You felt relief. You felt proud. But here's what's actually happening to your money in that exact moment. You just eliminated one of the few tools that could have made you wealthy. Sounds wrong. It isn't. For most of your life, you've been told one story about debt. Debt is bad. Debt is dangerous. Debt is something to escape as fast as possible. And for the kind of debt sitting in your wallet right now, that story is true. But rich people don't use that kind of debt. They use a completely different kind. And the gap between those two kinds of debt is one of the biggest reasons wealth concentrates the way it does. Let's start with the debt you know. Credit cards, car loans, buy now, pay later apps. This is consumer debt. It buys things that lose value the moment you own them. A car depreciates, a phone depreciates, a vacation depreciates before you've even landed home. You borrowed money to acquire something that is now worth less than what you owe on it. That's the trap. Economist Irving Fisher described this over 90 years ago in his debt deflation theory, where borrowing against shrinking assets creates a spiral that's brutally hard to escape. Your car loan is a small, personal version of that spiral. Now here's the other kind of debt, the kind rich people use constantly, openly, and without shame. It's called leverage. And leverage means borrowing money to acquire something that grows in value, not something that shrinks. Think about a rental property. Someone borrows $200,000 to buy a building. The building appreciates. The tenants pay down the loan. The owner's own cash sits mostly untouched, growing elsewhere. The bank's money did the heavy lifting. This is not a loophole. It's math. Economist Thomas Piketty spent an entire body of research explaining why returns on capital tend to outpace the growth of wages, and leverage is one of the sharpest tools for capturing that gap. When you borrow to buy an appreciating asset, time works for you instead of against you. Why don't more people do this? Because access isn't equal, and because the emotional weight of debt was never taught to you with any nuance. You were taught debt is debt, one category, one feeling: fear. But ask yourself something. Is a loan on a depreciating asset the same thing as a loan on an appreciating one? Would you feel the same anxiety about a mortgage on a property that's cash flowing every month as you would about a payday loan? They're not the same. They were never the same. The only reason they feel the same is that no one separated them for you. Here's where it gets more interesting. Behavioral economist Richard Thaler showed that people treat money as if it lives in separate mental buckets, even when it's mathematically identical. You might refuse to invest an extra $1,000 in an index fund, calling it too risky, while carrying $5,000 in credit card debt at 20% interest without a second thought. Same dollar, same math, completely different emotional label. That's not irrational by accident. It's irrational by design, because debt was marketed to you as convenience, not as a financial position with a cost. Rich people don't fall for that framing because they were taught to ask one specific question before borrowing anything. Does this debt buy me an asset, or does it buy me a liability? An asset puts money in your pocket over time. A liability takes money out of your pocket over time. A mortgage on a rental property is an asset-producing debt. A loan for a depreciating car is a liability-producing debt. Same word, debt, describing two financial opposites. This is also why interest rates matter so much more than people realize. When rates are low, borrowing to acquire appreciating assets becomes historically cheap. And that's exactly when wealth gaps tend to widen fastest, because the people who already understand leverage move quickly, while everyone else is still avoiding all debt equally, out of fear, not out of strategy. So what does this mean for you, right now, today? It doesn't mean go take out debt tomorrow. It means change the question you ask before you borrow anything. Instead of asking, "Can I afford the payment?" ask, "Is this money buying something that will be worth more than what I owe a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now?" That single question filters out almost every predatory, depreciating form of debt. And it's the same question private equity firms, real estate investors, and yes, the wealthiest people you know ask before they sign anything. You don't need millions to start applying this. You need the habit of separating debt into two categories in your own head every single time before you swipe, sign, or borrow. Liability debt. Pay it off as fast as possible. Treat it like a leak in a boat. Asset debt. Understand it, respect the risk, but stop being afraid of the word just because it rhymes with something that hurt you before. You paid off that credit card. That was still the right move because that debt was never working for you. But now you know the difference. Now, when the next dollar of debt comes across your path in any form, you're not asking whether debt is good or bad. You're asking which side of the line this specific dollar sits on. That question is what rich people learned early, and it's the one thing standing between you and using debt as a tool instead of surviving it as a trap.